Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the show. And tonight we have a very special, very poignant introduction.
White lives matter. Say it true. Henry's blood is calling you. White lives matter, say it loud. Where's your knee now? Virtue crowd. Floyd's death became a global flame. The world was told to speak his name, but Henry fell beneath the knife. No famous voice wept for his life. For Floyd they knelt, they filled the square, with cameras flashing everywhere. But when a British boy lay dead, not one famous tear was shed. White lives matter, say true. Henry's blood is calling you. White lives matter, say it loud. Where's your knee now? Virtue crowd. You took the knee for George Floyd. Your public grief was well enjoyed. When Henry Nowak hit the ground, selective outrage made no sound. Star Marina, cameras on cue. Hamilton, Rashford, Sterling too. Saka, Stormzy, Lineker loud. Silent now, the righteous crowd. I've been stabbed, he tried to say. Don't think you have, mate, brushed away. They put him in cuffs as his life bled out. Now where was the march? Where was the shout? One life sparked a movement. Police knelt in the street. One life met silence, left bleeding at their feet. If every life matters, say it loud and clear, or say skin color tells you when to shed a tear. White lives matter, say it true. Henry's blood is calling you. White lives matter, say it loud. Where's your knee now? Virtue crowd. You took the knee for George Floyd. Your public grief was well enjoyed. When Henry Nowak hit the ground, your camera courage was nowhere found. Henry Nowak, speak his name, not for pity, not for fame. White lives matter, say it true, or all lives matter dies with you.
Wow, what a piece of work. Thank you so much to the We Are True Patriots channel who have allowed me to play that tonight. Please, all ask you in return. There it is, We Are True Patriots, White Lives Matter 2, a song about selective outrage. Now, I want to make it clear that the author of this song firmly believes that all lives matter. And the point of this song is selective outrage. So thank you so much to the We Are True Patriots channel who allowed me to play that this evening. Please go over there and make sure you subscribe. The guy puts out some of the most amazing music that should go, in my opinion, to number one. There you go, Susie. We Are True Patriots channel. Absolutely, Anne, powerful and true. Welcome back, everyone, for the second live stream of today. It is Friday, the 7th of August, 2026. And this evening, it's all about you guys. I'm going to be putting your comments over on the right-hand side. Please be warned that my moderators are in attendance and in action this evening. If you want to post anything that's inappropriate, feel free to do so, but it will be your first and last post. You don't have to agree with anything that I say, and you're welcome to disagree vehemently with anything that I say, as long as it is decent, clean, and legal. If it's none of those things, you will be removed. Kendall, how do we get that song in the public domain? Well, we share it, Kendall. We go to the We Are True Patriots channel, we find the video, and we send it to all our friends. An absolutely amazing piece of work. You've got to listen to the words very, very carefully indeed. Absolutely. Rest in peace, Henry, and rest in peace, Peter. Absolutely. Right, okay. As everyone knows, the topic of tonight's show is, as advertised, it is the Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe debate. It is all about those two guys, our two leaders, as it were. And I mentioned this earlier on in my live stream, that over the last few days, really since Sunday, when I think it was Sunday, when Rupert made his announcement. Cheers, Charlie. I'm on no one's side. It's pathetic. It really is. Thank you very much, Charlie. I really appreciate that. What I've been doing since Sunday, I've been talking to friends that I trust implicitly, people that I respect implicitly from both sides of the camp. I have some very good friends that support Rupert Lowe and Restore, and I have some very good friends that support Reform and Nigel Farage. And I have friends that are in the middle that like both men. And I kind of put myself in that category. I like both guys. I'm not so impressed with some of Rupert's backroom team, but we've been through that before. We're trying not to cover any or too much old ground this evening, because what I want to do, I want to ask you guys a bit of a favour tonight. I want you for the next hour, and I will be inviting you guys on to take part in the show later. I'm particularly looking for people that perhaps haven't come into the show before. And I can keep you off screen. I will be able to see you in the background, but I'm hoping that you guys can clear your mind, put any biases that you may have, preconceived ideas this evening. If you can put them to one side just for this show, we can go back to wherever we want to be afterwards. But just for tonight, I want you to clear your mind and bear with me on this. So as I've said, I've been talking to people from both sides. I've got friends in Restore that tell me that Rupert is an amazing individual and that he's telling the truth. I have very good friends who I trust implicitly in Reform that tell me Nigel Farage is an amazing individual when you get to know him, if you really knew the real Nigel, and that he's telling the truth, and that Rupert is a troublemaker. And the confusing part for me, before I started doing some more digging myself, is that I trust all these people. I believe what they tell me. I don't think any of these people would deliberately lie to me or try and pull the wool over my eyes just for the sake of it. I do believe that they believe in what they're telling me. So I thought, look, this is going to need a little bit more investigating. So what I've done over the last few days, I've been busy reading one news article after another, watching every single video that I possibly can, to the point where Mrs. T threatened to throw me out if I didn't put my phone down. That was tongue-in-cheek, by the way. I've even been using AI, because sometimes the use of AI enables you to bring up articles or incidents that you may have missed, you may not have caught, or you may have forgotten about. So I've been through everything that I possibly can this week with a completely open mind. Let me try and get the We Are True. There's people asking for a link, so let me see if I can get that up for you guys. 1 second, and I'll pop the link into the chat. There we go. I've got it here. Let's just grab that. Let me pop the link into the chat. That is the link to that song. It's in the chat right now. I'll pop it in a couple of times, so hopefully no one will miss it. There you go. 3 times I've popped it in. You should see it there. Okay. So I have been, yeah, the link's in the chat now, Kelvin. So I've been doing all sorts of research, and I've completely and utterly kept an open mind. I was really, really determined to try and be as unbiased as possible. Now, last week, Rupert Lowe, as we all know now, he appeared to hold out a reconciliatory hand to Nigel Farage. It came with demands, of course. I didn't really see too many problems with those demands, which I would imagine would be negotiable. I think the insistence that Nigel would have to throw out half of his potential front bench could have been a bit of a problem. But nonetheless, the offer happened, and that was much to everyone's initial delight and huge surprise, myself included. Now, since that video, the general reaction and response from both sides, from both men, has been, well, let's just say perhaps a little bit disappointing. Now, we know that the online right, even those that support Restore and Rupert, we've seen it from polls where 90% of those on the right wanted a successful outcome, including those as I say, who support Restore, and they seem to share the appetite for some kind of unity, which tells me they understand the need for unity. But I'm afraid instead of focusing on the positives that could have been focused upon and trying to put the past behind them, both Lowe and Farage, for me at least, from my research, seem to have spent more time this week, over the last few days at least, digging up the past rather than trying to bury any hatchets. And many of my viewers seem obsessed with who's right and who's wrong. When I look at X, it's all about Nigel versus Rupert, who's telling the truth and who's been telling us porkies. And that really is one of our big problems on the right of politics, isn't it? Sometimes we are far too principled. Principles that the left can easily put to one side for their greater cause. I guess to some degree that is a strength for them, although personally I prefer principled people myself. But I've come to the conclusion that actually none of it really matters to us, and that we'll probably never know the truth. And even if we did, I got to thinking, well, what would it change in our lives? What difference would it make to us, our families, and our country? And this has been hugely exhausting for all of us, because this really is nothing more than pure personality drama dressed up as politics, with no real clean resolution in sight for the people that both men claim to represent. Now, we know there is a history here, and I'm not going to go over it too much, but briefly. Excuse me. It's incredibly hot here tonight. I'm just going to grab a quick drink. So as I say, I'll keep this brief. Now look, Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage have been locked in their public feud since, what was it, early 2025. And it all started when Rupert Lowe criticised reform structure and Farage's leadership style, calling it a protest party led by the Messiah. And following that, Reform suspended him over denied allegations of bullying staff and threatening the party chairman. Lowe called it a witch hunt to silence him, especially over harder line positions on deportations. This whilst the police and the CPS took no further action. Since then, it's been briefings, leaked WhatsApps, competing newspaper articles, accusations of lying about private messages and calls, and only last week, a failed attempt at unification that pretty much immediately collapsed into more claims of bad faith. I'm sure that we're all sick to death of it for obvious reasons. It's repetitive, personal, and low-stakes theatre with no winners, only losers, and we all know who the losers are. I'm talking to us, talking to you all right now. Two ambitious men on the same broad political territory, trading cheap blows over who is more principled, who lied about a text or a call, and who is damaging the cause. Meanwhile, of course, us mere mortals, the ones relying on these people to deliver, have no access whatsoever to any of these private conversations, the internal party dynamics, or any true motives. We simply don't have a clue, do we? It's all hearsay to us. Allegations and denials cancel each other out. Screenshots get selectively released, and each side has an incentive to frame the other side as being the problem. The absolute truth about who started it or who's right is simply and unquestionably unknowable from the outside, and it will stay that way. Meanwhile, the horrible and dangerous result is vote splitting on the right, which of course helps no one except our opponents. That is why, in my humble opinion, the who's right and who's wrong debate is pointless and meaningless. And it's that way for me, and I think it should be that way for you too, because it changes nothing and solves even less. So even after reading probably 100 news articles this week, even after watching probably 100 videos from both sides, even after trying to put myself in both men's shoes, I've concluded that they're both as bad as each other. And I've decided that my ultimate decision as to who I will be supporting moving forward will be strictly a scientific one and not one based on emotion or personalities. Now, from there, I want to move on and talk about the numbers, which are unambiguous and completely and utterly indisputable. Remember, I'm now looking at this from a more scientific viewpoint. As things stand, Reform UK currently polls somewhere around 23 to 25%. In most seat projections, it is regularly the largest or the second largest party, with estimates ranging, predictions being between 120 up to 300 seats, depending in the next parliament, or sitting in the next parliament, I should say, sorry. Restore Britain polls at between 3 and 4% nationally in most mainstream surveys. And at that level, under our complex first past the post political system, they are projected to win 0 or at most just 1 seat. Now, that is a hugely researched projection that most people feel is very accurate. Now, even in by-elections, where it has performed relatively well, I'm talking about Restore Britain now, where they've been getting between 6 and 9%, the party has basically functioned purely as a spoiler. It has no realistic path to becoming the largest party, let alone forming a government. And Rupert Lowe's personal appeal is largely confined to online spaces, and he does not attract the broader electorate needed for a national victory. This is not my opinion. Again, I repeat, these are indisputable facts. If you want to dispute them, that's fine, but I'd like to see some receipts that will prove me wrong. So we move on to splitting the right, and that all this guarantees is failure. Every vote that moves away from a party that can win to a party that can't win reduces the chances of winning. And models show Restore could cost Reform between 50 and 70 seats if it stands widely across the nation, enough to turn a potential Reform lead into a hung parliament, or even worse, another Labour victory. And again, I ask you to look at this with an open mind with me, because anything that I say tonight is not going to change the next election. It's not going to change the path of our country. This is genuine, honest, from the heart research, what I've looked at, the numbers, the stats, the figures, looking at both men, what they've had to say. This is all from my heart and from my head. And this is not some kind of, abstract theory. In the Makerfield by-election, Restore's share helped hand that seat to Andy Burnham. Of course, we all know that the combined votes wouldn't have beaten Andy Burnham, but nonetheless, it didn't help. And the same simple factual arithmetic will apply nationally at the next general election. We must all recognise that and understand it. Now, like him or not, Nigel Farage has spent years building Reform into a professional operation capable of fighting seats right across the country. Rupert's party remains a one-man MP, a one-man vehicle with a very strong social media energy, but strictly limited organisation, candidates, and appeal beyond the hardest edge of the right of politics. Pure positions that poll well in certain online bubbles do not and will not translate into a broad coalition required to win under Britain's electoral system. Everyone on the right must not forget that electability is everything. Everything. And while some might like to claim, I can probably hear you now looking at the screen saying, well, Nigel Farage isn't on the right. Whilst they're quick to do this, they never actually give us a viable, or more importantly, any truly electable alternative. And electability, again, I repeat, is everything. Yes, we all know. We all know that Nigel Farage is a long way from being perfect. We all know that. I certainly accept that. He's not my favourite politician in the world. But he is the only figure on the right who has repeatedly moved the political centre of gravity and forced mainstream parties to respond. Rupert Lowe's more demanding rhetoric, mass deportations, cultural bans and purity tests against former Conservatives, energises and excites a very narrow base. Now, some of that rhetoric excites me, but what we have to understand, what everyone must understand, is that very crucially, his rhetoric, whilst being appealing to many of us watching this tonight, actually alienates and indeed frightens the wider voters that will be needed for a victory. It's called Middle England, and we've spoken about the importance of winning Middle England voters plenty of times before. And I'm not talking about the Midlands, I'm talking about your average Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now, I accept, and I'm sure many of us prefer the more exciting option over the less attractive electable one. Let me repeat that, just like you. In many respects, I prefer the more exciting option over the less electable one. But that's a luxury and a fantasy that the right simply cannot afford to have, when the alternative is a continued hard left government and the further erosion of our freedoms and our culture. Voters who say they want change should and must come to terms with prioritising the only vehicle that can deliver it. Otherwise, we are doomed. So my conclusion, after all my research, after all my thinking, after all those videos, I watched the Lotus Eaters a hell of a lot this week, because they are some of Rupert Lowe and Restore's biggest drum beaters. And sometimes they speak a lot of sense. I said it earlier on, I thought Charlie Downs made mincemeat of Julia Hartley-Brewer the other day, and I agree with pretty much every word he has to say. I'd be singing from the same song sheet. But voters who say they want change should and must come to terms, as I said a minute ago, with prioritising the only party that can deliver that change. So whether we like it or not, whether we support Rupert Lowe or whether we support Nigel Farage, whether we think reform are part of the establishment, they do remain our only realistic vehicle. Restore Britain, whatever its sincerity, is, like it or not, currently nothing more than a protest vote that risks ensuring the very outcomes its supporters claim to oppose. And we're coming to the end of this part now, and then I'm going to bring you guys in. The bottom line is that the British people are absolutely livid with mass migration, legal and illegal, high taxes, the cost of living, two-tier policing, and what they perceived, or what they perceive as anti-Britishness and the inevitable cultural changes they face. Some may even say the inevitable cultural destruction of everything that we know and that we love. And I agree with all of that. In fact, I think we're in a probably even worse place than that. So quite understandably, a significant number of reform supporters have switched to Restore because they see reform as insufficiently hardlined on immigration and compromised under Nigel Farage, whilst viewing Rupert Lowe's Restore Britain as being a more authentic party and more radical. And I understand that. It's very appealing. It's an appealing look, and his words are music to the ears of people who are absolutely at their wits' end, myself included. But the harsh reality is and remains Nigel Farage's reform offers the only genuine route to change and to government. Unfortunately, Rupert's Restore Britain simply does not. And with all due respect, those that believe that a party with no real infrastructure and only 3 to 4% of support across the nation are simply lying to themselves and doing a disservice to the rest of us. Many of the good people who have switched to Restore believe it to be a worthy, principled resistance, and I admire that. But in truth, it's nothing more than a gift to Labour, to Islamism, to the Greens, and to the establishment that we all so strongly oppose. And I've concluded that the sober, sensible, realistic and mature choice is clear. Never mind, Nigel, Never mind Rupert, never mind their petty differences, never mind who said this, who said that, who did what, who didn't say this and who didn't do whatever. In Rupert's own words, frankly, we don't care. So as a people, we have to rise above all of this, including these two individuals. Who's right and wrong is really none of our concerns. And it certainly won't benefit us or our children. If our so-called leaders can't find the will, the courage, and the ability to unite us, then we have to lead the way ourselves. I go back to what I said earlier. 90% of those on the right want unification. And whether it's our first choice or not, we can only achieve that by backing a party that can win, as I've said before. And then, boy, oh boy, once they've been elected, then we can really hold their feet to the fire and make sure the buggers deliver. Now, I asked you, as my audience, what part of that doesn't sound like a sensible plan? Right, guys, that is my conclusion on the Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage debacle, quite frankly. That's all I can call it. Charlie, again, thank you. I'm on holiday, mate, so won't be on tonight. Big love. Charlie, enjoy your holiday. Ty, Steve, thank you. Guys, please wake up to the Fabian Society. Research it. They are why the right need to unite. Another left government. We're finished. Indeed, Ty, Steve, if anyone missed Liam Tuff's interview yesterday, again, another gentleman that I watched on there yesterday calling for unification. A very good interview. UK Patreon tour. Paul, please message re-offer to end soften. Please message is at Rupert, re-offer to Nigel, soften condition banning ex-conservatives, reform. Can never do that. People change and they bring valuable experience. UK Patreon tour. I've come to the conclusion, quite honestly, that unfortunately, whether we like it or not, and I don't want to pick on either of the two men involved because, as I said, I think they're both as bad as each other, quite honestly. Rupert's offer to Nigel last week, with the benefit of hindsight, was quite a strange one. I've been in business all of my life, and I've done some big deals, I've done some good deals, I've done some bad deals, and I've made some shitty decisions, but I've never done them in public. I've always been private about my offers, negotiations, and initially I thought that perhaps Rupert's offer, going public with it, was probably a good idea. MRH, thank you. Paul, living in the real world. Appreciate that, my friend. There's probably going to be plenty of people that disagree with me, but I'll be interested to hear. I'm not sure. I cannot find the sincerity in Rupert's video last week. The more I dig, the less sincerity I can find. On the other side, I don't see that Nigel being in any way, shape or form interested in replying or responding or having Rupert back on board or in the team or whatever you like to call it. Let's have a look. Matic, we all know Paul's opinion. Choose the easy option, not do what is right. Farage may be able to win now, but Lowe is the principled, wise decision. Matic, I completely and utterly disagree with you, my friend. I think you're living in a fantasy world. I'm sure you're a good guy, you know, and we're here to have a friendly discussion. But my friend, let me tell you something. Let's put Nigel to one side for a moment, because a lot of this seems to be about Farage. Sod Farage. Let's say that, I don't know, name whoever you like. Let's say that Ant Middleton became the new leader of Reform. Let's say that Lee Anderson became the next leader of Reform. The decision is still the same. Now, Reform isn't the easy option, Matic. Reform is actually the harder option because we've got work to do with them. They're a work in progress. Do I trust Nigel Farage and Reform to do everything that we need to be done? No. Do I think there's a chance that we can hold their feet to the fire, hold their feet to the coals in the future and ensure that they do what they promised to do? Yes, definitely. But with Rupert Lowe, even if he is the more principled man, I don't care how principled he is, if he isn't in number 10, he's as useful as a chocolate fireguard, my friend. So restore, I'm not going to say Lowe because we keep talking, this is what I'm sick of. Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage. You know what? Sod the bloody pair of them. This is Reform versus Restore. That is it. Forget the personalities. It's Reform versus Restore. One party can win the next general election. The other one has no chance whatsoever. None. Zero. How, Matic, my friend, is that a wise decision? You tell me. Please tell me. If it, you know, again, I don't want this to drift into another night of I'm a Reform supporter and I'm anti-Restore. I'm not. As I said right at the very beginning, I've looked at this all week very carefully. And this is the conclusions that I've come to. And I see nothing out there, nothing at all, to change my mind. I've seen no evidence. One of my lights has just gone out. Let's have a little look. Paul, have you heard from Richard? Yesterday, I think. Why is this light suddenly playing up? Right, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw open the stream tonight. And I'll be very interested from hearing from you guys. Michael says, I was happier than I've been for months when I saw Rupert's video, but now we seem to be back to square one. I'm gutted. Yeah, Michael, you know, I think everyone felt the same. I made a video about it the following day. But with the benefit of hindsight and with more time to study the wording, the reaction from Nigel, it was all a bit theatre, I think. It was all theatre, I fear. Right, let's throw I'm going to pop a link into the chat. If anyone wants to hop on tonight and join me, feel free to do so. You can tell me that I'm right. You can tell me that I'm wrong. Whichever you want to do, feel free to do so. Let me just alter this so that nobody's actually going to be on screen with me. I think, hold on a minute. Let me just get myself together. Should do. Hi, Julie. How you doing? Good evening.
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm very well, Julie. Thank you. What's on your mind, honey?
Right. I'm going to go totally against the grain now. So
Go on.
bear with me. Right. The left get into bed together. We know that, right? So we will have the Greens, the Liberals, all voting like lending Labour their vote. So the right have to unite. They have to do the same thing. Now, I think Nick hit the nail on the head because he said that they're never going to agree, right? But they can agree on a couple of policies. And reform, whether we like it or not, are they're further ahead. You know, their party is a lot further ahead. Now, Rupert Lowe is one MP, good intentions, but half the country don't know who he is. And as you say, we have to gain middle England. So against the grain, I know this may seem, what have we got to lose, right? A couple of quid and our time. Remember when TR was in banged up, everyone sent well wishing, right? Sacks and sacks of mail. And it wasn't like emails or that could be ignored. It was a visual thing. Now, if we could get someone that's good at writing to maybe draft a letter, or people write their own, write to both parties and Reform and Restore and say, remind them that the people vote for them. And if they don't, sort their act out, get themselves together and agree on just a couple of policies, say, right, we'll all end Restore our votes, because if you don't, then we refuse to vote at all. Then none of you will get in. So if we refuse to vote at all, Labour will get in. But if they don't sort themselves out, Labour will still get in. So what do we have to lose? Now, as you know, we've just started up as a small channel. We've only got 28 subscribers, so we can't do it on our own. We need bigger channels to sort of help. Now, I don't think we've got anything to lose. Can you imagine loads and loads of mail to these two parties saying, this is what we want and this is what you need to do? What do you think?
Julie, I think it's a nice idea, but if I'm brutally honest with you, I think that both parties already know this. They're not stupid. They know what the people want. I'm sure that Nigel's team will keep an eye on social media and will get a feel for the room. I'm sure. Well, I know that Rupert's team does as well. They can read a room. They know the situation. I think the wider problem is that the gap between Rupert and Nigel is so wide. The gulf between the two, the personality issues between the two, is so deeply rooted that their personal grievances will always come before the country. Now, I know that sounds quite harsh on both men, but I firmly, I mean, look, for me, I'm going to be honest with you. If I was the leader of Restore Britain, me personally, if I was the leader, I would close the party down. I would go back to being a movement and put all of my efforts into electing Reform, but to holding their feet to the fire to ensure that they actually deliver what they say they're going to deliver. Because that's the key, Julie, right? Is the hardest part is getting the keys to number 10. Once you've got the keys to number 10, and I've often said before, and I believe that Farage can't always say necessarily what he really wants to do, because just like Labour, they don't always tell you what they're going to do before they get there. Now, we got to hope that Farage has a few nice surprises for us along the way. We don't know, but if there's a huge movement, a people's movement called Restore that is jointly supported by a people's movement called the Unite the Kingdom movement, that is probably 50% of Reform's key vote, and Reform will know that. So we can hold Nigel Farage's feet firmly to the fire, but not unless he's elected in the first place.
So maybe we could, like what you said, if we feel that Restore should step back. These politicians have got so far up their own arses they think they are entitled to our vote. They have forgotten that, no, they have to earn the vote. So whether we say you've either got to join together, and if we feel that they can't do that because of their egos, then one party has to step back. But if they feel that there's going to be no voting and that's it, it's like taking food from a baby to them.
Yeah,
Like all they're
yeah,
interested in is getting the keys to number 10, it to be on their CV. Look at me, I've been Prime Minister. But we have the power, whether they can be or not. So it was just an idea. It was just like going against the grain, because I know
yeah.
we've
No,
been
exactly.
saying,
Look,
oh,
Julie,
vote, 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 but
it's
maybe
one that
not vote.
it's one that I'd need to think about. It's one that I definitely need to think about. Julie, thank you so much for coming on. I've got loads of people waiting.
Just before I quickly go,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So you know that the Queen bees look at you as their big brother. Well, little sisters are meant to annoy big brothers, and very smooth this afternoon. Very smooth, like not the old Fisher wife. No, you're not stuck up, but you're not common. And yeah, you're doing okay for 59. Very, very smooth, Paul. Give my love to your
I'll
family,
do my
and we love
best.
you.
Thank you very
Take
much,
care.
Julie.
Bye,
All the
mate.
best, yeah.
Bye.
Take care. Take care. Bye bye. That is Julie there. Let me just move Julie out. Hold on one second. There's Julie gone. Let me see. Let's see who's in the chat here. Let me bring in Alex. Alex, good evening, my friend. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Alex, perfectly. Your mic is spot on.
Brilliant,
What's on your mind, mate?
Look, I'm just going to quote a couple of things that make a huge difference to the conversation. Firstly, I'm just going to quote a few figures. Reform have 8 MPs. They have 17 members of Scottish Parliament. They have 35 members of the Welsh Parliament or Senedd. They have 2 mayors. They have 1 police commissioner. They have about 2,400 councillors and 270,000 paid-up members. Restore have 1 MP and 35 councillors, 34 of which defected from Reform. So this thing about you have to join, it's farcical. The only reason this video was made is because Nigel's got a by-election coming up. You know, the Conservatives aren't standing at Labour, Greens, Lib Dems and Restore aren't standing in it. So they just wanted to get a quick jibe in. Conservatives have done the same today. They put in a thing, you know, don't vote for Nigel. It's that kind of thing. The second thing I want to point out is the history of the Uni Party. It's going to take a couple of minutes. Now, historically, and you know this, because you would have been a former Tory supporter, I'm guessing. Was you a former Tory supporter?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I'm not knocking you. My dad was. I voted Tory. Right. This is how it always worked between the Tories and Labour. Tories are always staunch. They're always on the side of business, big businesses, and people with money. There's always been a way, and they cut down on welfare. That's been their mantra for 30 odd years. Labour are the flip side. They try and take from the rich, right, and give more to the welfare and half bankrupt the country, which they've done before. What Reform are trying to do is appeal to both. So they want to be on the side of the working man, and if you've got a business, wherever, they're not going to tax you to the hilt. Yep. So in terms of Uniparty, and I've said this, I keep on saying it, Nigel's been against the establishment for 30 years, 25 of which was in the EU, and then with UKIP, he was against the well, it wasn't really so much of a Uniparty then, because you had those differences, and then somewhere along the lines, they've sort of like closed the gap, the left and the right, hence the term the Uniparty. Now, for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. If you want, this is the massive thing, and I've been saying this for 6 months. People think it's a race between the left and the right to who governs Britain. It's not. It's between the Tories and Reform. It's who leads a coalition. Because Restore aren't going to get the votes the Tory party are going to get. And the
No, I was
Tory
gonna-
party
I was
will
gonna-
vote. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about the Tories. There's a bit of a resurgence under Badenoch. Do you feel that they are the biggest danger right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the Conservatives are.
What they're trying to do is, in the event of a coalition, they want to be leading it.
Yeah.
That's all that they want. Because they
I
know.
think that's all they can hope for, isn't it, Alex? Really?
Well, yeah, exactly. So if people see it in that terms, now, do you want a unity party to continue leading the country, or do you want reform? Because listen, I don't mean this in a horrible way. I'm not going to throw my vote away for Rupert Lowe, and I'm not going to throw my vote away for Tommy Robinson. I don't mean in a horrible way, but everyone says they need Tommy Robinson. They don't need another media outlet. They don't need another PR firm to promote them. They've got GB News. They've got Slots on Net. They've got brilliant marketing and media people. And I don't mean that horrible. Tommy's brilliant at the street level and all that kind of thing. I said when I spoke to you before, not knocking him as a person.
No, Tommy doesn't want to be involved in politics, particularly.
No, exactly. But sometimes, you find yourself sort of taking sides because personal things have happened. And, Nigel did rubbish him. I'm not going to say that he didn't. I'm not going to lie in that respect. He called him out with something which, I've said before, was totally wrong. Because he'd read a publication. Yeah, because he'd read a publication by Hope Not Hate that said that he'd clobbered a woman copper, which he never did. So it's not an anti-Tommy thing, but my understanding is, on this unity thing, from my perspective, it's a Conservative thing, mate. It's just to get the Conservatives on top. The Conservatives have been calling for unity because they know that what can they do without it? They can't do nothing without a coalition. And they may well have two options. They may have a choice of reform or the Labour. Labour is the most frightening one. If them two got together, we'd be absolutely, done for.
Absolutely.
But that's my 2 pence. I don't listen to this restore thing. I feel for the membership. I really feel for the membership because they've got behind something. Not only that can't win anything, but their objective is literally to help the Tories. They won't even rubbish them at all. And the Tories deserve rubbishing.
Yeah,
they really do. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stop you there, mate. 'Cause we've got a lot of people waiting to come on. Look, I agree with most of what you've had to say there tonight. Thank you for coming on again, Alex. Really appreciate that. Vicky, you're up next. Vicky, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Paul. How are you?
I'm very well, Vicky. What's on your mind tonight?
So this whole Rupert and Nigel Farage, I've been thinking about it all, and I did get excited like everybody else to, see a little bit of hope. And I think neither of them have been educated in diplomacy. Rupert, I think one of the things that I found very off-putting with Rupert was the death penalty referendum. And although it's just a referendum, it's too unpalatable to most of Britain. I don't think we'll ever go back to looking at, that as a form of punishment. And
Vicky, that's an interesting point. Before you go on, where do you stand with that?
I would definitely say no. I think, we look at lawfare right now. Imagine if we had the death penalty. It gets politically abused. Obviously, people we know will be innocent, and it's just not foolproof. And I think one of the things that I'm proud about of our country is that we're a civilized nation, or we were. And I've lived in America, and I think it's barbaric. And what happens out there is people sit on death row for years because it's a political tool, because they'll, use it to their favor to gain votes. And I think the same would happen here. But also, like I said, I just think it's too barbaric now in 2026. I think people need to go to prison for life, and it mean life. I think we need harder sentences. but
I
not
know
the deaf.
I know that's probably not why you rang in, Vicky, but it's an interesting topic, and I just want to give you my thoughts on that for
Yeah.
anyone that's interested. I mean, when I was younger, I was always in favour of of capital punishment. As I've got older, and you read about the miscarriages of justice, and you understand that the law can be politicised, and like you rightly talk about lawfare. The only thing for me that I would add to that is that we live in a period, in an era where the doubt, the element of doubt, in some cases can be removed. For instance, we use the case of Axel Rubicana. We're not suddenly going to find out that he was innocent. We're not suddenly going to find out that Michael Adabadaro, whatever his name is, was not guilty of murdering Lee Rigby. This is documented on camera, and it's there for all to see. People like Ian Huntley, as another example that I would use. I would like to see capital punishment reinstated for very special instances, and each potential death sentence would have to fit a certain criteria, DNA proven, absolutely no shadow of any doubt, beyond any doubt of any doubts. We know for 100% certain the fact that this individual was guilty, and then it would go to the families of the victims for them to decide. So ultimately putting the power in their hands. Life to mean life, or the death penalty. I could quite happily go along with that. But anyway, carry on, Vicky, because I'm sure that's not all you rung up about.
No, I think it's like you said, it's an interesting debate. And I think it's, there's a big divide. And I think, there are people I can understand, with the kind of things that have happened in our country, people wanting that kind of retribution. And maybe you're saying that it's only classified for a certain type of crime that's foolproof, but still, I don't believe in the system not to abuse it. So, anyway.
There's another case. The thing is, I mean, for instance, it's very easy to say, and I'm the first one to say, by the way, that if anyone harms our kids, they can swing, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But there's another side to that. You see, if someone kidnaps a child, if they know that the death penalty is at the end of the road for them, that can sometimes push them into doing things that they might not have done before. So there's a lot.
What you mean? Because they know that there's they've got no way out, so they might as well just.
They might as well do it. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are to be discussed and considered.
Yeah.
But anyway,
for the general population, though, I think it was an error.
Do you think they would? I'd be. Do you know what? I don't know. What do you think? Well, let me know in the chat, everyone. What do you think? How
I think a lot of people support it on this channel, but you're talking about Middle England, people that aren't so politically motivated. Well, I can guarantee will not go for the death penalty. And in America, I know people don't like studies, but they know statistically the death penalty doesn't make a difference to crime or the severity of crime. Because it's used as
a taxpayer a lot of money, though.
Will it?
Well, I don't know. A bullet's cheaper than life imprisonment.
Well, it depends how they do it, because they would have to, they still would have to go down the human rights road to make sure that they don't actually suffer as such. But, I just think it was a mistake on that part. His other like red lines or no-go areas, I thought, that's just somebody coming to the table with, the premise of negotiations. But then the next day or the day after that, he was so quick to turn on Farage again and remind everybody about what happened to him. It feels like it was not genuine. I think it's a good thing because it's got people talking about uniting the right. But I feel like both of them, but I'm sorry, I think Rupert Lowe missed the point. if I were putting out the olive branch, I would let go of my ego. If I was genuinely thinking about the country, and I would appeal to his better nature. And I'm surprised that Farage even said he was going to respond after, Rupert's comments based on what might have been said and what might not have been said. So yeah, I feel like it made me realise that there's a bigger, gap than we originally even thought. But then I watched Nick Tenconi on your show, and I was actually so impressed with him. He's a great communicator. He really has. He understands the logistics of each party and the pros and the cons. He is what diplomacy is all about.
He's a good lad, Nick. Just looking at our poll we're running tonight, the question was, who are you going to side with? Rupert Lowe's on 37%, Nigel Farage on 23%, and just plain sort it out, lads, is winning on 39%.
Yeah. Well,
which
I did watch Tuff's interview last night.
Yeah.
Was it Matt Watts?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
I was impressed with him too. I mean, he basically encapsulated everything we know, but in more concrete terms. And Frontline Alliance already have 300,000 people on their books. They're going to start politicizing their movement, and I really think they're ones to watch because they're veterans. They are mobilizing in cities and towns. People trust veterans. They're multifaceted in terms of their skills and coordination, and I think they're interesting. I don't know what's going to happen with Rupert and Restore. It just feels like distraction a little bit now, but also I'm still not 100% on Nigel Farage. I definitely believe he's still part of.
Same. Yeah,
He is whether people want to accept it or not. He is a part of the establishment. Yeah. There's only so much that he can do, and I've watched a lot of interviews with people from Parliament who've pretty much said that he's being backed by the establishment so that he can make it. So he's still also, bound to some of the policies and things. I think
that's going to go for anyone who they allow to get in power. Vicky, I'm going to have to move on, I'm afraid.
Right, thank
you so much. Really enjoyed having you on again. Appreciate it. Right, we got Mr. Barfly up next. Then we got V Ranger. We got Agent Serco. We got Alan waiting in the wings. We got Angie Rayner, not the Angela Rayner, I hope. And we got Mandy, and we've got Rel all waiting in the wings. So let's bring in Mr. Barfly. Mr. Barfly, we've got a lot of feedback there. Hopefully you can remove that. Can you hear me? Mr. Barfly, you are live. Can you hear us? Nope. I'm going to move on to Mr. V Ranger. I'll try and come back to you. Mr. V Ranger, are you okay?
Yeah, great. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well, my friend. What's on your mind? Mr. Barfly, I'll try and come back to you in a second. What's going on, V Ranger?
Yeah, so it's fantastic. I mean, and so everyone chat about whether we should be Rupert Lowe or whether we should be going for reform or X, Y, Z. What's the point? We're all in the same boat. It's the boat that goes to the right. So we need to all get together and stop talking about little small points that divide us internally and allow the left to take control.
I agree entirely. We're long overdue.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous that we're all splitting hairs over small little points that really, when we're talking about running a country, shouldn't matter.
So how does that look for you? What do you think needs to happen right now, and what are you hoping will happen? I mean, do you want to see Restore carry on and become, hopefully for them, more powerful? Do you think people should forget Restore and move and stick with Reform? What's your view?
Well, it was said earlier that sort of like maybe Restore as an idea should just carry on being a movement. And, you know, I'm all for that as well, as it being an actual political movement instead. But the actual fact is as long as the people are behind something, and that's all people, regardless of whether you're Restore or Reform or Conservative even, as long as we all get behind each other collectively, regardless of little infighting, we can win.
Yeah.
It's just a case of we've got to get together and forget that you need to 100% agree with everything one person says. We
Yeah,
don't.
that's never going to happen, is it?
No, exactly. And we only need to agree 51% more on our own side as a
Yeah.
maximum for it to be turning the ship in the right direction.
Yeah.
We're always talking about saving this country for our grandchildren. Well, if we're doing that, it's going to take 40 years. Now, we're not going to solve this situation in 1 week by all
No.
agreeing that one person has said the right thing. So, therefore, we need to take small steps, all pull together and all go in one direction, regardless. It just has to be the right direction. But even if we don't agree 100% about the words that are said.
I agree with that entirely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on. I will bring in Mr. Barfly next because he was due to come on a second ago. Hopefully he's got his audio sorted out. Sharon, thank you very much, Sharon. Yes, both as bad as each other. This is about our country, not them. Rupert, not ready. Nigel, only chance. If we lose the country because of their spat, it's really down to us. That is indeed true. Rachel has been a member for 10 months. Could Nigel be waiting for the Claxon results? God knows. Fletcher Liam, Restore have to support reform. We don't have time. I agree entirely with that as well. Mr. Barfly, let's try again. Can you hear me? Mr. Barfly, can you hear me? We're not having a lot of luck with Mr. Barfly, unfortunately. Unfortunately, his audio is not working, so I'm going to remove him from the studio. We've got the one and only Agent Serco up next. Good evening, mate. How you doing?
All right, Paul. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. Got a bit of feedback, so I'm going to mute my mic whilst you talk.
Right, okay. Let's get a couple of things under the table. First of all, I don't want Rupert Lowe in, and I don't want Farage in. Farage is a con man as far as I'm concerned, and Rupert Lowe is just a joke. So we're stuck in this situation of who do we have? Now, I'm saying we've got 3 years before the next election, so hopefully something might come up along the lines. We don't know. But the trouble being is, and you're not going to like me when I want to say this, but the £5 million bothers me. Because if he's sold to what? What's it for? Somebody doesn't give you £5 million just like that unless it's for something. So if he's selling his position, does that mean when he becomes Prime Minister, if he becomes Prime Minister, will he sell that? He's not interested in us. All these promises they're making. I was listening to a guy the other day, a guy that worked before in government. And they said, yeah, they're saying all these wonderful things, but they're not going to work because the problem is, and I'm not hearing it from any of them, is the civil service. That's the big problem, the civil service. And until we get to grips with that, we ain't going to get nowhere.
So if you're not a fan of what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to mute your mic when I speak and mine when you speak because we're getting a bit of feedback from both of our mics. So what I'd like to ask you then, if you're not a fan of Farage particularly, you're not a fan of Rupert Lowe particularly, do you have any names in your mind that could do the job?
I would like Ant Middleton.
Well, wouldn't we all?
I know Tommy's not interested, but Tommy would be ideal because he doesn't want it. But he's a leader of men.
Look, you know my feelings on Tommy. Tommy is a friend. I think the world of him, and I think he's a great human being and a very brave individual. The problem with Tommy is, and I'm sure he'd admit it himself, that the battle that we would have to get the uneducated to come to terms with Tommy is just mind-boggling. I think, you know, Tommy, thankfully, says he doesn't want to be a politician. Whether he should or shouldn't be is entirely up to him. But I do agree that Ant Middleton Ant is relatively untarnished. I wouldn't say he's a clean slate. There are things in Ant's background that the media would have a bloody heyday with, you know what the buggers are like. But nonetheless, he's former special services, he's respected, he's well known, he's liked, he's a very nice character. I've met him, I've been lucky enough to meet him. He's very attentive. But what banner would you like to see him stand under?
I would like him to stand on one that unites us all. I like this because even.
I mean, which party? Which party?
Do you know what? You're not going to like this one, but this is the first time I wish Ben Habib would bring Advance back. Because Advance to me, I know this sounds really cockeyed, but Advance in its own way was getting there. I just couldn't vote for Ben Habib as himself. But if Ben Habib was like in the process working in the background and he had somebody at the front like Ant Middleton, I would vote for that all day long.
Look, I think the bottom line is we had it all with Advance. I think Advance had everything, and I think it had the potential to bring Ant on board. I spoke to Ant in Poland about potentially joining Advance. But the problem is Advance was I'm not going to use the word sabotage, but Advance was brought to a relatively quick halt because of the advent of Restore and what many of us were hoping is that we was going to have Rupert, we was going to have Ben, we was going to have Ant, Tommy in the background doing the people's movement. Now that would have been, for me, a genuinely viable alternative to reform. It didn't work out, and the rest is history. And there's no point in crying over spilled milk, I guess.
Well, the problem I have with reform is a big problem. It's about the money, not just about the 5 million. You got Tice with money now. And then you see all the money men coming into reform. This is not a party for the people. This is a party for the money men. We've had that for years. We need something that's going to come in, get rid of this bloody civil service, stand its ground, get things sorted. Somebody who's military minded. It has to be somebody military minded, because then they can go through a disciplined approach to things. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, and we've all got to accept that.
It is going to be tough. It is going to be hard. I mean, the only thing I'll say about the money is I never get too hooked up on people with money or where the money come from, as long as it wasn't downright illegal. If it's out and outright illegal, then I've got a problem. But if people have been given money, if they've been born into it, gifted it or whatever, it's not really any of my business, quite honestly. As long as, I look at people's hearts rather than their pockets myself. And I don't see a lot of hearts in Westminster, full stop, mate. I'm going to move on. Thank you so much, as always. I'll let you
go, Paul, before you go.
Yeah, go for it.
It's all about hearts. When money comes into politics, then that's not about for the people. That's about vested interests. That's the issue, Paul. That's the issue I have a problem with.
Yeah, no, I understand that, mate. I understand that. I really do. And I'm not saying you're wrong there. I'm just saying in general, I don't begrudge people having money. Obviously, as long as it was gained in the right way. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm going to move on because we've still got 4 more guests to come. No more this evening after that. Rachel, I did that one, didn't I, Rachel? Thank you. Did that one as well. Jamie, thank you, Jamie. Effect the political bullcrap, stick with Ant Middleton and Frontline. There will be an uprising. It's Iran 1979. Thank you for that, Fletcher Liam again. Paul, will you attend the Reform Conference in September? I won't be coming home, my friend, not until this government has gone. And I don't actually think I'd be allowed within the Reform Conference anyway. Fletcher Liam again, cheers. Ben, HD Wootton are extremely unhelpful uniting. Oh, Ben, sorry, let me read that again. Ben Habib, Dan Wootton are extremely unhelpful at uniting. I read that wrong the first time. Thank you so much for that. Let's bring in the one and only Alan. Alan, good evening. Are you still up? You're not out partying tonight?
Not at my age, bloody hell.
Oh, go on, I'll pop round for you, Alan. We'll get out together.
Yeah. See what
Where'd you
pictures
go?
on Zimmer frames.
We'll find the nightclub somewhere that'll have us.
What, the Zimmer frames?
What's going on, brother? I'm good, mate.
I'm telling you, I'm pretty pissed off with everything. To be honest, the way I see it, right, is the country's been divided for the last 25, 30 years, right? To turn against one another and all the rest of it. So now we've got this complex about ourselves where it's me. Because if you don't, then you're not going to survive.
Yeah.
Right? For one. So this is the way the thinking of the narrative goes. So you've got that narrative, and that's throughout Parliament, everywhere. So these two men that are supposed to be wanting to lead this country out of this shit and can't even talk to one another civilly for 5 minutes at a drop of an hat.
Yeah.
It's like having a go at one another.
It's not a good look, is it, Alan?
It's not a very, very good look at all.
It's not a good look. I do think that Rupert kind of put Nigel Farage in a bit of a sticky situation last week, probably deliberately, with his offer, because Nigel would have looked really, really bad if he didn't respond.
To me,
I don't believe
all that was about was saying, I'll show the people, I'll con the people in this way. I will turn around and say, I'm opening my hand out and this and the other. And then halfway through, which where the speech went wrong, well, after everything as we come through, kicking me out of the party and all this and all that, he didn't to bring any of that up. If we had a fight outside the boozer, we got up, we shook hands, we went in and bought a good drink, and we probably come bleeding good pals. That was the way it was done back in our day, Paul.
Yeah.
You know that, I know that. Them was born, right, before us. They was born before us, so they were born in the 50s and 40s, right? So they had that span. So they was, because they got to be what? 12 years ahead of me, because I'm 67. So, and you just had your birthday, so you're 65. And, so basically, we're talking about two grown men who can't even be civil for one day. To turn around and say, well, this is what I see. We need to have a chat on the phone, see what similarities we can come out with, sort this mess out together. We can sort our differences out, our party differences, not the personal differences. Forget about them. There's water under the bridge. If we just get forward. But these men are actually showing me they are not worth my take in the box.
I think to be honest with you, Alan, I think Nigel probably thinks that Rupert is beyond help now. I think that, but he knows that publicly slamming into him is not going to be helpful in any way, shape or form. Look, it's not Rupert necessarily that we need. It's the people that support him. They're the people that we need, because they are part of any victory that we get. at the next general election, they will need to be a part of it. And if that means,
yeah, but they're all the people who think that he's going places. Rupert Lowe is not going anywhere, and neither is Nigel Farage if they don't unite. Nobody is, because believe you me, the bleeding left is united, and if he calls an election at the end of this year, right, like it's
I think we're screwed.
like it's rumoured, he's run by a landslide, because nobody is going to back Reform and Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
Because you know what, Paul? In the mayor election, I voted for the Restore candidate, right? This is the way I saw it. I thought, any day, we got a month, 6 weeks there now. I thought, someone's going to come knocking on my door, representative of Restore. Somebody's going to come knocking on my door for Reform, what have you. I have not seen nobody from any party, right? And I've been in this house 58 years. You know where I live. So I've been in this house 58 years, right? And I have not had one person who represents a party, which was always Labour and Conservatives, right, near my door. So I'm what you call the middleman that is asleep, supposed to be. I'm waiting for the knock on the door for them to ask me for my vote. I've never seen them for 40 years. 40 years! And they're trying to wake up the 20% what don't vote. If you don't knock on the bleeding door of people like me, you're not going to get them. Because I get off my ass and I go down and I'm ill, and you know it, and I'm in a wheelchair, and I drive down to the police station, get out with my car and my crane, and I bothered to go in and get into a cubicle and put my marker on that cross, what I think might do the trick.
Yeah.
And last year, and the time before that, I've always voted for Reform. I don't vote for people. I look at what their hands are doing me, not what they're saying, because I'm not interested in what they're saying, because I can get online, look at their policies, and all day long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what you got to look at. And if you're not willing to do anything like that, and you're not willing to get off your bony fat ass instead of shining your teeth for them and getting down that bleeding voting office, when your chance comes up, this country is on a losing battle. I think this country is going to die. And I do. From the way people are acting, they won't get their act together at all. And it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late.
Alan, a very strong message from you tonight. Thank you so much, as always. Look, I understand that, Alan. Thank you, Alan, mate. I hope you're well as can be expected. We're bringing Angie, Mandy, and then Rao. I mean, look, I think that right now, as we stand, and I've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks now that I think there will be an election in September, maybe October. September now is looking unlikely. October, November, before the end of this year. That has always been my prediction, and it remains so. And we're in big trouble if that happened right now. Let's bring in Angie Rayner. Angie, I think you got your mic muted, but let's give you a try. Can you hear me, Angie?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you perfectly well.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing? I'm very well, thank you, Angie.
Good, good. Okay, so if Reform UK had not got rid of or sidelined the common sense right-wing candidates, including Rupert Lowe, and on top of that, he also excluded the right, there wouldn't be any Restore Britain party. But here we are, you know.
I agree. I agree with that. I do agree.
Now, Restore have around 150,000 members. They've only had 2 elections so far, one for Makerfield and one for the Manchester mayor. So that isn't enough evidence to say that they can't win anything. as you might know, I was part of Reform UK. I was the first female councillor in the Southwest for Newquay in Cornwall.
Mhm.
I did a lot of the groundwork for 3 years. The first signs that something was wrong in Reform was when I got a call from HQ telling me to delete all my posts from my political page on Facebook and the Reform Cornwall page, which I created, regarding my support for the Bursford Hotel protests, where they had the Home Office put 210
Yeah.
migrants in.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I was supporting those protests, and my response to HQ at Reform was, well, why? Because we've got Nigel in the channel reporting on the migrants coming over. I was also told to delete any posts on Ukraine. And again, I said, why? Because in the future, people are going to get fed up of paying huge amounts of money for somebody else's war. So I didn't actually delete those. So I went against the grain, didn't toe the party line. So from that day on, I was deemed a bit of a troublemaker, maybe a bit of a rebel.
A rebel. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it all came to a head at the end of 2023 because I was due to be the Reform candidate for St Austell and Newquay. But what they wanted me to do is stand aside and be an organiser for Cornwall, which I'd pretty much been doing by myself anyway. And I agreed to that, providing that they had the good candidates. And they presented me with 6 candidates, because we've got 6 constituencies in Cornwall. And 2 of those candidates I vetted myself, and they were dire, absolute dire. They supported lockdowns, mandatory jabs. One of them was actually a magistrate, and he locked people up and fined people. And I asked Reform, I gave all this evidence along with a lot of other stuff on these 2, which would have been an absolute media train wreck. And they refused to give me alternative candidates. And I knew that we had alternative candidates.
When was this, Angie?
This was late 2023.
Okay, so to be fair, that is pretty much Reform in their infancy. But let me just ask you a question, because you're obviously now, I'm guessing you're a Restore supporter now, yeah?
Well, I'm actually a Restore Britain organiser, because I knew that eventually they would get rid of Rupert, like me and many others, because we were probably too far to the right and too opinionated.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair enough. But let me ask you a question, and I'm being honest with you. I'm not trying to be difficult or trying to be awkward. We're having a friendly debate.
That's fine.
That's what it's all about. So when you talked about a minute ago, potential reform candidates being a train wreck after being vetted, having kept a close eye on Restore and their social media, and some of the people that have been following Restore and some of the remarks that we've seen, I'm sure you must have witnessed some of it yourself.
Yeah.
How is that vetting process going to go for Restore? Because however difficult it was for Reform, I think it's going to be 10 times more difficult however difficult it was for Reform, surely it's going to have to be 10 times more difficult for Restore, no?
No, Paul, in every single party, you've got people that are slightly to the left,
Of course,
slightly to the right.
Yeah.
And that's the same that happened in the Conservatives, which is why we're in this situation right now, which is why then Reform made the same mistake and started, going more to the centre rather than to the right, which is what we wanted, all of us wanted. That's, I'm pretty sure that all the Brexit voters wanted Restore to be more to the right of the Conservatives. And I think with Reform. It's to both ours, isn't it? Loads of people keep going Reform. I mean Restore. But yeah, so now with Restore Britain, yes, with any party that is going to go hard on immigration, and want to represent the indigenous population, and that's nothing to do really with racism, but you will attract those hardline
Yeah.
people. You know.
So let me ask you. Sorry, Angie, cutting across you there. Let me ask you something else that I covered in my opening statement this evening. Kind of what I'd like to know from someone that, if you say you're a restore organizer, is how do you not realise, or do you not understand, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, that whilst me and you and most of my viewers watching right now, we might be energised by Rupert's hardline stance, and we may, I mean, I sit there listening to Rupert sometimes and I'm literally pumping the air going, yes, that's what we need, Rupert, yes. But I'm also grounded enough to know that the vast majority of people in England and Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland, they're going to be crapping themselves when they hear some of this rhetoric, and they just ain't going to go for it. I mean, that's Middle England, right?
But one of the things that I used to say to Nigel when I was in Reform, because even though he didn't step in until the last minute, he still was the honorary president. So I used to have contact with him. Is, you know, I said to him, why are we only going after the Conservative votes? That's what we were told. We're only interested in getting the Conservative votes. I said nearly 40% of the electorate do not vote. Why do they not vote? We need to get in touch with those people and see why they don't vote. And I think that Restore Britain, from my experience, they have tapped into that. Absolutely. There's a lot of people that haven't voted. But what I wanted to say is, going on from your, I've been listening to you saying that you think that we should get under Reform. I am telling you that the right will not get behind Reform. They won't. And they are quite entitled not to. And it's not anything to do with, oh, if you don't get behind this, you know, under this umbrella, you're going to split the vote. No, actually, in Cornwall in 2024 general election, the left did something. I had a lady from the hospital. She was a nurse, and she reported to me that she had an email from Labour, and she said, well, this must be a data breach because I'm not a Labour member. What had happened is that Labour and Lib Dems worked together, and they emailed all their members and said, right, in this constituency, you vote Lib Dem. In this constituency, you vote Labour. And it worked. They took all 6 seats away from the Conservatives. And this is what we need to do. And the Americans are on board with this. I've been writing to them for quite a long time. And I've pushed this with Rupert, and I've pushed this with Nigel, and I've pushed it with some good Conservative MPs. You know, there are still some good ones. Nick Timothy, for example. So this coalition, that's what it is. When people say, oh, we shouldn't work with Reform, we shouldn't work with Restore, or, you know, whatever, it's an agreement, it's a coalition, and it has to happen, and people need to get their heads around it.
But didn't you just say a minute ago, though, Angie, that the right will never back Reform?
No, but what I'm about to say to you is how we solve it. Now, clearly, in places like Manchester, Birmingham, Leicester City, it's not going to work. But that's only a handful of places in the whole of the UK. We've got 650 seats. However, if devolution comes along, then we may be at 500 seats, because I understand that 150 seats are going to be taken. So what we need to do is put one person between those 3 parties and get them all around the table, get a map, stick in all the pins. This is where we want our candidates, and sort it out between them. So there's just one candidate representing all those, well, not all those 3 parties, but you know what I mean, to pool the votes, because the numbers will work, and we will probably have 90% of Parliament with Restore, Reform, and some good Conservatives. It's the only way to do it, and you market
you're talking about tactical voting, obviously.
Well, yes, but the other candidates won't be there, So everybody will go, they'll
Yeah.
log onto a website or they'll go into the newspaper, because it'll all be, the lists will all go out to all the media, and it will be, right, I live in
Yeah,
St
no, I get it,
Albans
Angie, and I get it, and I'm sure the viewers do. And I'm not. I think it's a very sound
it's how we get
idea.
there.
The
We need to
problem
get the
is,
issues around the
Angie.
table.
The problem is, Angie, I'm going to be honest with you. I think, from what I've seen, that there are a lot of Restore supporters out there that still wouldn't have that.
I think that's why
it's
that's
their
why,
way or the highway.
yeah, and that's exactly why Rupert came out and said what he did, how he said it, because he's got, some of his members that want to go hard, and they don't want to go anywhere near reform. You've got reformers saying exactly the same thing, just like what you said. But we need to start to get everybody thinking that we need a coalition. They do it in the EU. We have to prop each other up. Otherwise, our country is lost. And if you don't, you're sitting there saying exactly the same thing. Oh, everybody must get under reform. No, because I know some die-hard Conservatives. They will never, ever vote for another party.
What is it, Angie? You may be well ahead of me here. I'm a little bit confused for the moment, but let me ask this. So what does our next government, to you, what does it look like?
It looks like kicking
and
the
who
left
leads
out
it?
completely.
And who
out
leads
of, I
it?
mean, you might have a handful of, Muslim MPs from Birmingham, Leicester City and Manchester. You might have a smattering of Labour. I don't think Greens will get a looking at all.
But who's in government? Who's in government?
It will be a coalition. It's the only way to do it. As a Restore Britain, I would rather have Reform and Conservatives in opposition. Now, how they do it, how it all works, that's something that's, once we get people on board with it, how it works is, it could be that, let's say, for every 2 Conservatives and 2 Reformers, we have 1 Restore Britain candidate. It might work like that. Depends on the
Angie, Angie, what you're saying, I think, does make a hell of a lot of sense. The bad news is we have enough trouble getting these lazy sons of bitches off their seats to go and vote for the party that they want to vote for, let alone the party that we're telling them they should vote for. I'm not sure the British public
they're not ready for it yet.
They're not ready for this because it's too much for them.
When they realise what's going to happen if we don't do something, if we don't.
Well, how long's it going to bloody take them? I wish they'd hurry up and realise.
Yeah, but I was part of the PR, machine for reform, and we can do that all again, but we have to all work together. But that's something that I've been pushing for the last few years. So
Angie,
I can see it all coming.
Great call. Really enjoyed that, Angie, a Restore supporter. And look, here am I saying vote reform. We got on perfectly well. We're on the same side. We want the same thing.
Exactly.
We want the same
the
thing.
thing is, if we don't get people thinking the way I'm thinking and the way a few other people are thinking, we're going to end up with a hung parliament. And I'm not being funny, but that's. The left are just going to vote against everything that reform wants.
Yeah, of course they will. No, look, I agree entirely with you there, Angie, and I very much see what you're getting at, and I think you're on the right tracks. However, I would say, and I don't mean this as a downer, but I just think it will be easier to get an uneducated British public to vote for a party and a person that they know because they've seen him on I'm a Celebrity, than it is to teach them a whole new system of tactical voting.
Well, it's not a whole new system because at the moment you sort of have you can have one vote and you can have another vote. If it's actually simpler for the electorate to look at a piece of paper and go, oh, where's reform? Oh, there is no reform. Where's Restore Britain? There is no. Oh, but there's Conservative. Right, I'm going to vote for that, even if they haven't seen any advertising. But we do have the potential to do.
I think it's a good idea.
Together,
I think it's a good idea. I'm just not convinced about the political savvy of the British public to be able to grasp it. That would be my fear.
Well,
Angie,
the sooner
thank
the
you.
agreement's made, the quicker we can get marketing.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much. I really
Right.
appreciate that. Let's bring in Mandy, and then our last guest will be the one and only Raoul. Mandy, good evening.
Hiya, Paul.
You know that's bad for your health, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Don't care.
Hey? Right.
I'm
okay.
like you.
Yeah, that's it. What's on your mind, Mandy?
I've never been political, Paul, in my life. I was brought up with a mother that was a staunch Labour voter. She was the union rep for Unison, quite high up. My father, he voted Conservative all his life. So I totally avoided politics. I just felt it was too much, couldn't be doing with it.
Yeah.
Too many arguments in the family.
Better things to think about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially in my younger years.
Yeah.
I'm now 63.
Yeah.
I couldn't vote for Restore if they were the last party on earth.
Why is that,
Because
Mandy?
of the rhetoric that was put out by a lot of people, such as Steve Lowe and co. I've got a mixed race grandson, for one thing, that I'm babysitting at the moment, who's an absolutely fantastic 5-year-old that's driving me up the wall.
Yeah.
And I voted Reform at the last election. We have got a total Reform council, apart from the mayor. So that might give you a little hint of where I am.
Right.
I'm in Nicky Brown's constituency.
Okay, yeah.
Right? I want them all out, to be fair. Every last one of them. I've had more bother with our friends, let's say, that are not from this country. I don't know what religion they are, what race they are, and to be honest, I don't care. I just think that the Reform Council that we've got here, although I wasn't a member of Advance, had a fantastic time with Howard Cox a few weeks back. Me and Howard got on absolutely brilliant. And if Advance had still been about, they'd have had my vote. But I couldn't bear to vote for Restore. But I will vote Reform again if there is another election.
I think to be fair to Restore, they would say that Steve Laws has never been a part of the party.
I get that. I do get that. But there are plenty of others as well as Steve Laws that have come out with that sort of thing.
Oh, more
if you're
than
not
enough.
British, you need to go home. Well, funnily enough, and if you look on my name, it's now Madman the Viking. I did a DNA test. I thought I was English through and through. I ain't. I am 2% Scottish. I'm 2% Irish. I am 96% Northern European, Scandinavian. I'm a Viking.
Right.
I just don't get the whole thing. To me, I don't know. I'm at my wit's end with all of it, to be fair.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, Mandy.
And Reform will get my vote. If Reform run again in this area, Reform will get my vote. The councillors are fantastic. They'll do anything they can to help you. Ring the Labour councillors. They're not interested. And there's 2 or 3 of us have been in the same situation where Labour aren't interested. Restore will do anything they can to help.
Yeah.
Reform, sorry, not Restore. Reform will do anything they can to help. So for me, I go on what I see, not on what other people are saying, not what other people are doing. It's down to people's actions.
Yeah.
Nick Tenconi's party, I got put off a long time ago because of somebody who stood for Nick Tenconi's party, who was a bully, a child abuser.
Don't name any names.
No, I won't.
Yeah,
I won't.
yeah.
I wouldn't dream of doing it.
Yeah.
Anybody that went to the same school as me would know exactly who I was talking about, because it was a teacher. So, you know, I just don't know what I think about it all at the minute, Paul, but I would never vote for restore. God, I hate these bloody R's.
Yeah, we need a bit of a name sorting out there. Name. Look, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate that. And look, I get your feeling.
But next time you see Mad Tarts, that's also
that's
me.
you, right? Okay, I'll look out for you. Thank
right.
you, Mandy. All the best. Have a great weekend. Clad, thank you so much for that. Paul, it may feel like you're not getting anywhere, but if you stop preaching to the choir stops singing. Keep on talking the facts, reason, and reality the best you can. Thank you so much. Some people say I'm talking out my arse. The one and only Raoul is up next. Raoul, good evening. Are you still there, my friend? Are you still awake? That's the big question.
I'm still here, mate. How you doing? You all right?
I'm doing very well, Raoul. What have you got on your very considered mind this evening?
Yeah, a lot of listening, a lot of observing. First off, the phone-ins are great. You should do them more. I'm not telling you how to run your channel, but you get a real perspective view and feel of what's really going on with society. It's very crucial.
You do. I'd like to do it with a telephone, but there are technical issues with a telephone, and that is basically you cannot vet who's coming on. You don't know what people are going to say, but carry on, Raoul. I'm sure we're all looking forward to hearing your opinion this evening.
God bless you. Thank you. Hi all, by the way. So first off, I just want to touch on Rupert Lowe's video. When I saw the video, I was a bit bemused. I was like, what the hell is this? And after an hour of digesting it, because I watched it a couple of times, I was like, this looks like, because I saw you and Richard and everyone else, and everyone was really getting upbeat, and I could understand that angle. I said this before, I'm a very much more conservative, reserved, pessimistic person in how I tread things. That's probably because the job role I do and stuff like that. And to me, that video looked like cosplay. I'm not going to lie. It looked like an old Bruce Wayne sitting at a table at a cosplay saying, ain't I the good guy? Come speak to me, Nigel. And I thought, when you start putting out the stipulations and terms and conditions, I'm like, you're a non-league football team talking to Man United if you want to do a merger. What are you doing? If you really have decency to do something, you'll have the decency to do it behind the scenes. You got his number. You're in the same facility as him when it comes to politics most of the time. You telling me you can't just pick up the phone, be sincere, and say, let's have a chat. Or in person, let's have a chat. So I thought the whole thing, I wouldn't say it wasn't genuine, because I can't look through the man's soul, because that's unfair. But when he started coming out with stipulations, especially situations where he was saying, well, those who have been in conservative, they can no longer be in the situation of the merger or coming together, whatever that thing looks like. And immediately I thought, do you think Farage is really going to get rid of his biggest asset? And I'll tell you who his biggest asset is. It ain't Zia Yusuf. He's got someone who's absolutely Teflon, because in the realm of the premise that the left make and the liberals make, this individual is Teflon. You probably know what I'm going to say, and that's Suella Braverman. She ticks all the left's box. She's brown, Indian, woman, independent, successful barrister. They couldn't touch this woman. And Rupert Lowe is saying, no, we need to get people rid of her, Robert Jenrick, the list goes on. I don't care what people have done in the past. I care if there's redemption in their soul and if they're better today. So I'm not going to hold things like that to them. So when I saw that, I thought this is a no start. I could see it absolutely going nowhere. And that's my situation on that. I thought it could have been a con play to say, okay, he knew Nigel was going to step away. He wouldn't really interact. hey guys, I'm Rupert Lowe, I tried, have sympathy for me. Maybe that was a psychological way to society of the right to say, come join me now. That's how I looked at it all. But like I said, I can't look into the man's soul. This is just my opinion, simple as that. So don't sue me, Rupert. So that's my opinion on that. I think we're looking at this completely in a very idealistic way. When you are looking to such a magnitude of saving your nation and the deep-rooted mess it is, and the roots go deep, deep, deep for a good 40, 50 years, simply saying this guy and that party is going to fix it ain't going to do it. It'll make small tweaks. Look, the house is never right it's never wrong in the saying of casino, and nor the bookies. If you go to the bookies, they will say restore or reform. They'll laugh at you. They say, why are you even asking that question?
Of course,
reform all the way. It's reform all the way. They've got the establishment, they've got the names, they've got the money behind them. You do need some backers, folks, to get somewhere in life. You can't just hold a tin out to someone and say, can you put money in it every 2 seconds? As authentic and genuine I think Rupert wants to be, I think he's created a lot of this mess himself, because he got that wrong with reform, but then he had this opportunity to sort of forget reform, build his establishment, build its way, built its image in the correct manner, but they didn't. From the get-go, what they did, not him, but a lot of the people around him, deep-rooted, forget the Steve Laws, I'm not bothered about clowns like that.
Yeah.
I'm bothered about people in the party who run it. They were very, very arrogant, fall in line. Here's your new Julius Caesar, etc., etc. We know the individuals we're talking about. So that was a total turn off and a put off for me and people.
Massive.
Yeah. I was just like, forget this. These are kids who've played too much Call of Duty, or just had it too comfortable sitting in podcasts. They need to be street savvy. And why reform will be the only opportunity. And I'm not a dog in any fight. I'm more of a spiritual man, and I'll get onto that, where this really leads to. Why reform have a better chance? Because they have a broader spectrum of voters.
Absolutely.
They have a broad spectrum of voters coming in. They lean into the left. They lean into the liberals. They lean into the conservatives. They lean into that patriotic aspect as well.
Yeah.
And then, I don't like talking about skin color, but we live in a very multi-ethnic society. Now, I'm not down for people or parties pandering to groups, like, oh, I'll put a turban on, or I'll put a Hanukkah, or, a little skull cap on and stuff. No, I hate all that. But what reform are very good at is opening their arms and say, we live in a multi-ethnic society. That's where we are right now. To fix it, those who love it, come with us, come vote for us. And that's why they'll do better in the cities than Restore. Restore's rhetoric is very much a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
And I think it's very dangerous for a party to be constantly talking about ethnicity. I agree the English have to be the majority, and I get bored saying that. That's why I don't really talk about it anymore. But where the real winning formula is going to come from, and I've heard, people like Nick Cantoni talk about it, people from Bob from Speaker's Corner, the older Bob, not young Bob.
Yeah.
And what they talk about is a Christian revival nationalism, because under that concept, that is what Britain is. And that's what's lost within the English people. They've lost that Christian aspect. It's okay, and you probably get frustrated as well, Paul. It's okay saying I'm this is a Christian country, this is a Christian country, and I love it when English people say that. That's fantastic. But for something to remain something, you must practice, follow, and do the customs and traditions of that faith. The bare minimum you must do. I'm watching the World Cup when I'm absolutely pulling my hair out every time I see England play, because I'm like, you got all this passion and energy and drive as fans. You've spent so much money. Some of you have dressed up in Knights Templar, which I'm not saying you are devoted Christians or not, but if you're not, that's cosplay. That's an insult. These were great individuals. But it would be great if you lot had that same energy towards your nation and your ancestors. It'd be great if you raised your children to understand that politics and religion go hand in hand. Liberalism and secularism is the disease and poison to a society. That stuff should exist in Islamic nations. where Islam, it is an oppressive, dark movement. It shouldn't exist in Christian nations with the enlightenment of Christ and so on, you know. And that's the nuts of the problem here is the English have to revive themselves to a Christian nation, because then you'll get other patriotic people from different backgrounds. You'll get other Christian people from other backgrounds who live here will side with you. They're not going to vote for people like Restore. That's why I don't really take much interest in them. Rupert Lowe's there. He's the sort of show. I get what he's doing, but my focus is more like, what's the winning formula? And the winning formula is you go where the highest bets are. It may not be the best thing, but you'll get 60% of 100%. It's better than nothing. It's better than the left being in power. And that's why it comes down to identity. It comes down to culture, Christianity, family. You build that within the community. It's powerful, you know, in that way. So it frustrates me and it really angers me sometimes, but the winning formula is there and people aren't tapping into it. Instead, they're just fixated on skin color and who should be majority and who shouldn't. What should we focus on is what was this nation built on and who are we as a people? Well, who this nation should be is Christianity. Can we focus on that first? Because guess what? Let's play this game, and please tell me if you agree or disagree. I would love to hear it, Paul. But let's say we play this game that Restore play, which is, okay, the majority needs to be white English. Okay, and I agree with that, you know, but we are where we are now. Okay, so let's say the majority was 90% English, but let's say 40% of that were Muslim white English. Well, what happens to them? Because then they will slowly build and grow and outbreed you as well, and then create a caliphate, will create an Islamic state, because it shouldn't be purely based on skin color. It is based on the ideology of your spiritual identity. That's why all nations who hold on to that succeed and are powerful. Why did Trump come into power? He didn't bang on about white this and white that. You know, he didn't bang on about, you know, anything of that kind. He banded it about Christian values, and you got people from all backgrounds. He got the highest vote from Hispanics, Latinos, blacks. Yeah. Why did he do that? He had a winning formula and he bounded everyone by the identity of that nation. And if this nation had a strong identity, those who are bad faith actors who want to do ill and harm to us, because patriots come from all backgrounds, I know them, I'm one of them, they will then back off, they will start to leave, they will feel uncomfortable. But the problem is we have lost ourselves for so long, and we've allowed the authorities to take over with their agenda, where we are the second-class citizens now. So yeah, there you go.
I agree with 90%, 99% of what you just had to say there. As always, very, very entertaining. Let me just go back to our poll for this evening, Raoul, before we go. So the poll was, who are you going to side with? And we're going to end up, let's have a look. We've had 1,750 votes. 39% say Rupert, 24% say Nigel, and 38% say sort yourself out, lads. So, I mean, people can make of that whatever they wish. I hope anyone joining the stream late tonight will go back to my reasoning as to why I personally will be sticking with Reform UK. That might surprise some people. It may not surprise some people, but I believe that I have a science behind that, and I outlined that earlier during the stream. Ralph, thank you so much for coming on again.
Oh, can I just say one thing?
Yes,
one
absolutely. Because we're running over 2 hours now.
No, apologies. I don't want to get told off by your wife. Sorry. And I know people will probably joke in the chat, you know, it's one more Raoul. I've seen it before. It's quite funny.
No, go on, mate. Go on.
Yeah. Guys, your enemy isn't based around skin color. Your biggest enemy to patriotic people here is liberal feminist women and liberal people overall. They are your biggest enemies to abortion, biggest enemies to open borders, biggest enemies to defending those who do ill, and so on. They are your biggest enemy. If Restore did want to do anything, it bring on everyone from all background who is patriotic to this nation. But that's why Reform are ahead of the game. And sometimes they do things that annoy us, but I know why they're doing it, because they're looking at the long game. They're not looking at the short game. And that is, they're trying to make themselves Teflon to actually go and get these votes and win, because it takes around about a good it takes about 1 to 3 years to establish yourself. It takes another, I would say, about 4 to 9 years to 8 years to get yourself going in all cities. And then it takes another 10 to 16 years to now be embedded in a generation to who you are as a brand. That's how long it takes. Now, Reform somehow are doing it fast-tracked and very quick, and good on them. That's because of one individual, Farage. Hate him or like him, he's a known brand. He is a brand, guys. Remember that. He is a brand. He's been on all the shows, that Jungle Show or whatever he did. He is a brand. It works. Trust me.
Hey, he ain't been on here yet, mate. So
oh, there you go. There you go. Well, you got me. You know what I mean? So don't worry about it.
That's it. I've got second best. Ralph, thank you so much, mate. Really appreciate you. Good stuff, mate. God bless. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. That is the one and only Ralph. Always good value. Right, guys, we're going to play out tonight with the song that we played in with, for those of you that may have missed it. It's a song by We Are True Patriots. If you haven't already subscribed to the We Are True Patriots channel, there it is in front of you. We Are True Patriots. Please go over there, offer the guy some support and some love. Writes some of the most amazing patriotic music and songs that there are to be had anywhere in the world. And his latest, probably I think his best piece, Where Was the Outrage? White Lives Matter 2, a song about selective outrage, as we remember Henry Nowak. And I think we will play out tonight with this. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And before you go, please give me a thumbs up. It really would be very much appreciated. Thank you for that. Last super chat of the evening, Fletcher Liam Paul, you're realistic, your head's not in the clouds. Thank you for that, my friend. I try my best, but of course not everyone agrees, but hey, that's what it's all about. I've loved having you all as company for the last 2 hours and 3 minutes. Have a great weekend, and we'll play out with this absolutely mind-blowing piece of music.
White lives matter, say it true. Henry's blood is calling you. White lives matter, say it loud. Where's your knee now? Virtue crowd. Floyd's death became a global flame. The world was told to speak his name, but Henry fell beneath the knife. No famous voice wept for his life. For Floyd they knelt, they filled the square, with cameras flashing everywhere. But when a British boy lay dead, not one famous tear was shed. White lives matter, say true. Henry's blood is calling you. White lives matter, say it loud. Where's your knee now, virtue crowd? You took the knee for George Floyd. Your public grief was well enjoyed. When Henry Nowak hit the ground, selective outrage made no sound. Star Marina, cameras on cue. Hamilton, Rashford, Sterling too. Saka, Stormzy, Lingick aloud. Silent now, the righteous crowd. I've been stabbed, he tried to say. Don't think you have, mate, brushed away. They put him in cuffs as his life bled out. Now where was the march? Where was the shout? One life sparked a movement. Police knelt in the street. One life met silence, left bleeding at their feet. If every life matters, say it loud and clear, or say skin color tells you when to shed a tear. White lives matter, say it true. Every blood is calling you. White lives matter, say it loud. Where's your knee now? Virtue crowd, you took the knee for George Floyd. Your public grief was well enjoyed. When Henry Nowak hit the ground, your camera card